nerds, what's up? Today I thought it would be fun to do a quick ranking of Joe Abercrombie's First Law because you guys know I'm a huge fan of that series, so it'd be fun in a non-spoiler way to tell you exactly how I feel about each book. I will say I was originally going to do this as a live with the same people I did my Best Served Cold live with because that was such a fun group. It was Jimmy from the Fantasy Network and Leanna from Leanna's Library and Jake from Jake Bishop, but we just the schedule wasn't working out. I still think I'm going to do that because I still think it'd be really fun because I know we all have very different opinions about the ranking, but I just wanted to get my ranking out there as kind of a fun end of the year thing. So without any other preamble, let's get into it. So I'm gonna go in publication order because that's the order I read them in, and I think the order most people read them in. I will say one thing is that the lowest score I gave an Abercrombie book is 3 stars. And that's my average rating. So I didn't dislike any Abercrombie. In fact, I only gave 2 of the 10 books under 4 stars. So this is splitting hairs in a lot of ways, but I think it's fun. I'm actually ordering them 1 to 10. So this is my definitive list. So let's start with the Blade itself. I'm going with 7 at the Blade itself because it's a solid entry. It was interesting enough for me to continue the series. I think ultimately though, within even the trilogy itself, it's a beginning book. I think the other ones are stronger, which means going forward on to Before They Are Hanged, I do think it is slightly better than the Blade itself. Now, the thing about Before They Are Hanged, I do appreciate it a lot more now. And I wonder if on a reread, it'd go even higher on my list. At the time I read it, I actually think I would have put it beneath the Blade itself. I liked it slightly less. I think I gave them both 4 stars. But it was after I finished the whole trilogy, and if you watched my video about changing my opinion on books, I realized what Before They Were Hanged was trying to do. I didn't understand it until I had the whole picture, and then I was like, I get it, Joe. I get what you were doing, and it kind of increased Before They Were Hanged in my estimation. So this is definitely a ranking from a final view in terms of viewing the whole trilogy, not necessarily how I would have ranked them at the time. And that also means The Last Argument of Kings I actually am putting at the 5th best book. I did like it better than the other 2, both really solid. I think I ended up giving Last Argument a 4.5. Overall, the first trilogy, very solid, right sitting there at the middle of my list. Is how I feel about them personally. Now, my next opinion is going to be the spicy one that people are going to just totally disagree with so much, which is that Best Served Cold is my least favorite of the Abercrombie. This is the Abercrombie book I gave 3 stars to. Now, here's the thing. I think some of this was how it was presented to me, which was Best Served Cold, that's his girl power book. You're gonna love it because you finally get a good female character. Now, first of all, I really liked Artie, and I know that Abercrombie has come out in interviews and felt like Artie wasn't done as well as he had wished. I still love Artie. I understand where he's coming from. I think she was great. So I think people kind of this is Mons's book. That's who you're gonna get really attached to. And unfortunately, every character Abercrombie writes is good. So it's not like I disliked her character, but I wasn't feeling as connected to her as I did to many characters in the original trilogy. That's what people told me I was supposed to like about that book. I do think that expectation made it a little less. Since then, people have been or big fans of the series have been really, no, that book is Shiver's book. And I feel like if I went back and reread Best Served Cold with it's Shiver's book in mind, I do think I would enjoy it a little more. The other thing about Best Served Cold is I do think it drags a little bit. It is a revenge plot. I think there maybe needed a couple less people we needed revenge against. It drags a little in the middle. And I think it could have been cut down a bit. Overall, I still understand why people love it so much. It is more plot heavy than the other books. I didn't necessarily need that. However, I know that they're going to make a movie of this book. I do think it's the correct choice. Despite the fact it's my least favorite, it makes perfect sense why they would start with Best Served Cold as a movie. I think it is the easiest adapted to screen. I think it'll probably make a fantastic movie. It could also fix some of the issues because of the nature of a movie having to be shorter. I bet they will maybe take out some of the plot lines that I think dragged a little bit. So I am super excited to see that as a movie. But yes, it is my least favorite, I'm sorry to say. After Best Served Cold, I read The Heroes. Now I have to say, there's a little journey here with The Heroes. Should I tell you what my ranking is first, or should I tell you the journey? I'll tell you my ranking. So The Heroes is my number 4, and actually I almost put it as my number 2. We'll talk about it. Gosh, I loved The Heroes. Guys, The Heroes I loved. And what I was going to say is I took a big break after Best Served Cold because I read it Best Served Cold pretty soon after I read the original trilogy. And then everyone was saying Best Served Cold was like their favorite, and I didn't really like it. So I think I took almost a year break, maybe like 10 months before I picked up an Abercrombie again. And I think the only reason I did is because, like, obviously I'm friends with Leanna, who's obsessed with The First Law, so I wanted to keep reading. But also, everyone was talking about Age of Madness and how good Age of Madness was, and I'm just not someone who can do things not like the correct way. So I was like, well, I'm gonna have to read these. I kind of expected not to like the heroes. A lot of people, I feel like it's pretty divisive, and it was about a 3-day battle. I'm not really a battle person. Anyway, long story short, I read the heroes and it was like something clicked. The Heroes is the book that made Abercrombie click for me. I read it and all of a sudden it was like, I get it. I get what we're doing here. I get the vision of what is happening. And it completely changed how I viewed, honestly, First Law as a work. And it was really a pivotal changing moment for me, which is why I really want to rate it very highly. In fact, before it feels low. You know, it's just that Age of Madness is so good. Not to be a spoiler alert. Age of Madness is so good, but Heroes, okay, fine. Heroes, this is where it belongs objectively. Subjectively, in my heart, I could put it as the number 2 book because it's the most meaningful, number 2 most meaningful to me in the series. But I think, like, objectively, from a writing standpoint, I guess it's number 4. But in my heart, it's higher. Anyway, the point being, I loved the heroes. Okay, next up, we have Red Country, which I am putting sadly at number 9. The reason I'm sad about this, I did end up giving Red Country 3.5 stars. The thing is that I think it's overhated in the fandom, despite the fact I'm still putting it at number 9, because yes, the other books are better than Red Country, but everyone was like, Red Country's such a drag, and like, I didn't really feel like Red Country was such a drag, and honestly, I would have given Red Country 4 stars if it wasn't for the ending, which I felt like fizzled out. Just kind of didn't quite stick it, and that's why I ended up actually dropping it to a 3.5. But I do think like it's not as bad as everyone says. Now, I may have a little bit of a confounding variable with Red Country. Because I had been told that nobody enjoyed Red Country, I thought, well, I'll listen to it. If you're new here, I'm not a huge audiobook person at all. I barely ever listen to audiobooks. I pretty much hate 95% of the audiobook narrators I listen to, even very famous, beloved ones. They don't do anything for me. So I thought, well, I'll listen to Red Country. Here's the thing. I fell in love with Stephen Pacey. I didn't know it was possible to feel so strongly about an audiobook narrator. Now, I know he's very famous and well beloved, but like he convinced me that there is an audiobook out there that can be a good experience. And so I do think that like colored my vision of Red Country and made me like it a little more because I felt so strongly about the narrator. Yeah, it's not his best, fine. But I do think it's like underliked. Okay, and rounding out our standalones, we've got the short story collection Sharp Ends, which I'm putting in the number 8 spot. Here's the thing. I really love a short story, and I loved Sharp Ends, and I absolutely loved the characters of, oh no, I'm not gonna say them right, Shevadiah, and Haver. I've never even tried to say these names out loud. I just tried to look up how you pronounce those names, and no one has a guide for me. Look, those 2 female characters, loved them. I've always said there's not enough great female friendships in fantasy, and they're the best. I could read about them forever. I love that we got several stories from their perspective. Ultimately, though, it is a short story collection, so I feel like you don't necessarily get as connected to people, which is why I put it underneath most of his, longer form fiction. However, I feel like it's sad so many people skip Sharp Ends. Love Sharp Ends. Highly recommend you read it. It's a very quick read because it's short stories. You get some great Glockta backstory on one of the stories. Really enjoyed it. And if you like female friendships, you'll really like several of the stories in there. So Sharp Ends was great. So yes, we have Age of Madness, which is just like, yeah, it's typical. It is. I get it. It's typical that is where we are. But the thing is, Age of Madness is incredible. And who am I to disagree with that? So we got Little Hatred at number 3. Little Hatred was great. I will say Little Hatred was probably sitting at like a 4.5 to me until the ending, which is why it's number 3. And then the ending just like was so mind-blowingly good that I put it up to a 5 stars. But the other 2 were just like 5 stars the whole time. I will say like my spicy opinion is that actually, come on, go up. Trouble with Peace is my number 1. We'll just talk about those together since Wisdom Crowds is number 2. The Trouble with Peace is my number one Abercrombie book because I said when I reviewed it that it was 5 stars every page, no notes. And I feel that to my soul. Like, just what he did with The Trouble with Peace was so excellent. And what's even better about that is I have made a whole video about how often second books in a trilogy can languish, can suffer a little bit, and instead I feel like his number 2 was the best book. I get why people might say Wisdom of Crowds is better. I understand it. I gave A Little Hatred, Wisdom of Crowds, and Trouble of Peace all 5 stars. So it, again, splitting hairs here. The Wisdom of Crowds maybe had some moments that weren't 5 stars, despite the whole book being 5 stars. The Trouble, I literally mean like every sentence. I remember reading it and just being like, every sentence is stressing me out. Every sentence is something new around the corner. Perfectly crafted. The Trouble of Peace is my book. It's just so excellent. Okay, that is my ranking of the First Law series by Joe Abercrombie. I forgot to mention this earlier. There's one book that's not on here, which is the new book Joe put out, which is The Great Change and Other Lies, which is a collection of 4 stories. I actually haven't read it yet. It was really quiet, a quiet release. I didn't hear about it till after it had been released, and I heard about it randomly from somebody in the community, and I think you can pretty much only get it digitally now. I managed to sneak in before the physical copies were sold out through Subterranean Press because it was kind of expensive. Full disclosure, this was $60 because it's signed, but that's like the only way they were offering it. I ended up splurging on it just because you can't see them, they're where I out, but like I own all the physical copies of First Law, and since it is one of my favorite series now, I kind of wanted to own the physical. I think they're sold out, I'm sorry to say, but you can get it digitally. So I haven't read it yet. But it's not even on this list. I don't think most people know about it. So I could put that on the list at some point. Anyway, that was an aside. Please let me know if I had some major hot takes in there, or if you really want to argue with me. I'd love particularly to know what your number 1 is. I know there are some people out there who didn't like Ages of Madness as much as the original trilogy, so I'd love to hear about that. You guys can get angry at me for putting Best Served Cold last. I said what I said, and I'm not taking it back. Just tell me your opinion on the list, or if you haven't read all of them, what your current ranking is. I'd like to know. If you like these kind of videos, please like and subscribe. That is the best way to support me. If you want to see what I'm currently reading, as well as other nerdy rants, or participate in polls that I often put in my videos, you can check me out on Instagram at bookborn.reviews. I'll see you next time. Bye.